it's Lou Larson, the guitar instructor. I have a student here in the Cincinnati area named Don, and he had reached out to me and he wanted a little bit of help with organizing his practice sessions. And I've been working for years to develop a great strategy for practicing, especially whenever you don't have a lot of time to practice every day. So what I'll encourage people to do is, when possible, to try to string together 15 minutes per day of practice working on your physical dexterity, what we call chops, and practicing the information that you're going to need to play songs. Other days, whenever you have more time, you can jam with a loop pedal, get together with friends, practice all the songs in your repertoire. But I realize that a lot of people don't have time to do that every day. So building good skills in a short amount of time is really important. I made a list, and I'm going to share this. And so you'll notice here in my strategy, I have several sections of how I've organized these things. I start out with exercises that work primarily on my left hand. I started doing 2 fingers at a time, then 4 fingers at a time. Then I do some exercises for my right hand, and then I do some exercises for left and right hand coordination. Depending on the difficulty of the songs that I'm playing or some problems that I might run into, I might have to add a few exercises, but I pretty much start out every day with these basic exercises. So I'm going to close this screen, and first I'm going to do the left and right hand exercises. So I'm going to do the 2 finger combinations. I think it's really important that when you practice, that you practice with a metronome. Even if you practice these exercises slowly, you get a huge benefit by using the metronome. I'm using an old school metronome, but I normally use the metronome on my phone. This one, though, comes across really clear to my microphone. So we'll go. Oh, and before I start, I want to talk a little bit about left hand position. One of the skills that I'm always working to build is sometimes what people call classical position. And if you'll notice that what I do is that I have my palm lined up parallel to the edge of the fingerboard. And then whenever I put my hand on the neck, that I have each finger is aligned in the area of 1 fret. And this is called basic left hand position. That from this basic left hand position, there's also what's called extended position. So extended position is whenever the fingers on the outside of your hand can extend. My index finger can go down 1 fret lower, and my little finger can go up 1 fret higher. I've recently saw a video by Bryan Sutton where he was talking about the benefits of good left hand position. And he was saying that he believed that everyone that wanted to be a good bluegrass guitar player should study classical guitar. And this is what he's referring to, these principles of good left hand position that come from classical guitar. If you notice that my wrist is straight and my palm is parallel to the edge of the fingers, and what they often will talk about is your knuckles being parallel to the edge of the fingers. You'll notice that my little finger is curved. I have a lot of strength in my little finger, and that my thumb is in the center of my hand. I'm going to do some other videos that really go in depth about this, so I'm not going to talk too much about this right now. But one of the main principles that I should mention with this, and I'm not sure how well you can see my thumb, but the energy that I use to push down the strings, it primarily comes from the weight of my arm pulling back into the neck of the guitar. And I'm not squeezing a lot with my thumb, because when you squeeze a lot with your thumb, it creates a lot of tension in your hand and also a lot of friction. If you're having problems doing shifts where you slide up and down the neck, it could be that you're squeezing too much with your thumb and not having enough pressure from the larger muscle groups around your elbow and shoulder. One thing I also want to mention is I'm holding the guitar on my left leg. You don't have to hold the guitar on your left leg. And there's a lot of famous guitar players that have great left-hand technique that will hold the guitar on their right leg. One thing I always do like to point out, though, is a lot of people that hold the guitar on their right leg, if they're playing a song and they get to a really difficult section, you frequently will see them bring the neck up like this. I've seen lots of pictures of famous guitar players leaning back with their guitar up. And what they're doing is they're bringing the guitar up to get this pressure off of their wrist so that their wrist is a little straighter. And so their fingertips are lined along the length of the string. It makes it a lot easier to play fast passages. It also makes it a lot easier to memorize scales and melodies. So that said, I'm going to do the first set of exercises. And so the first set of exercises I do are 2-finger exercises. I'm going to isolate finger 1 and finger 3. And I'm going to set my metronome to 120. I've been doing these exercises for a long time. I'm comfortable with them. I usually suggest that people start at 60. You know what? I'm going to start at 60 just to demonstrate the first set. So this is 60 beats a minute. 2, 3, 4. So I'm tapping my foot. I want to get a good sense of the time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll go 1, 2. Now I'm going to shift. Start it over. I remember when I first learned these exercises, I always called them riding the dot exercises because all the area of activity takes place on string, on frets 3 and 5, and then 7 and 5. Third time. 3, 5. Up 2 frets, 7, 5. So that was 60 beats a minute. If you feel comfortable with those, you can do 2 notes for each click. Those would be 8 notes. So I'm going like this. 2, 3, 4. I go 1 and once you feel like you have a good mastery of doing those at 8 notes, we could do 4 notes per click, which would be 16 notes. So we would count those and go 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. Now, a trick that I often tell people, if you don't have a lot of experience at using that solfeggio style of counting, is that you can use words that you're familiar with. So if you want to play 8 notes, you can say fruitcake, which will take each beat and divide it into 2 sections. So I would do the 2 notes per each click, 2, 3, 4. I could go fruitcake, 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 fruitcake. If I want to do 4, I could say watermelon. 3, 4. I'd go watermelon, watermelon. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about is whenever we're doing these exercises, the most important things that we're working on are building good hand position and having really good transitions. That whenever you listen to the notes that I'm playing, it doesn't make for a very interesting song. And there's a reason for that. We're doing these finger exercises and they're not songs because what we want to do is we really want to pay attention and hold ourselves accountable to having good technique in both our left and right hands and being able to make these transitions and the position shifts. And so whenever you do this, you have to add a little time in to set up the next finger as you go. That's how you build a good rhythm. So the next exercise, so normally whenever I do this exercise that I just did, fingers 1 and 3, and I do it 3 times. And then I'll move to fingers 2 and 4. I'll do that 3 times. I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna do both of them, 8 notes. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. One more time. Now I'm going to switch. Same exercise, fingers 2 and 4. I always do my strong fingers first. Then when I do the weak fingers, I want to listen to the tone quality that I'm producing and strive for my weak fingers to have a similar sound to my strong fingers. Now I'm going to do fingers 1 and 2. Switch. Made a little mistake. Third time. Now I'm going to do fingers 2 and 3. Third time. Fingers 3 and 4. One more time. Great. That's my first set of finger exercises, and that's my 2-finger combinations. Just in case anybody wonders, this is a Classic Vibe Telecaster. It has a solid pine body. I had it refretted by Jamin Zeller, who's in the Cincinnati area, and he does just some of the absolute best fretwork that I've ever found. It's got jumbo frets. I had big frets put in it. It had some really small frets whenever it came from the factory, and I wasn't very happy playing those. I also had the pickups upgraded. It has, I think, Antiquity series Seymour Duncan pickups. So I know they're a lot louder than the stock pickups, but I can't remember exactly which model they are. So the next set of finger exercises I'm going to do are my 4-finger combinations. And so in the 4-finger combinations, now I'm going to do all 4 fingers instead of 2. So the first set that I do is that I do fingers 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I'm going to do 8 notes at 120. And I always do a total of 6 of these. So I'll start on the first fret and I'll go ascending all the way across. Then I move up a fret, I'll descend up to the 3rd fret, ascend, shift positions to the 4th fret, descend, shift up to the 5th, ascend, shift up to the 6th, and that's where I finish. So I might just do 16th notes. 2, 3, and 4, and that's the first set. So the next set I'm going to do, I got my metronome set on 60. I think I might have said it was on 120, but it's set on 60. The next set I'm going to do, I'll do fingers 1, 3, 2, and 4. 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and up. Now I'm going to do 1, 4, 3, and 2. 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and so then I just did all of my 4-finger combinations on my left hand. I'm playing through an Allen amp. It's a Chihuahua. I like this amp quite a bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play the right hand. This is, I call this a single string etude. And what I do is it is actually E harmonic minor scale. That's the scale. But we're going to do a picking pattern where we'll take a note from the scale, 1 note, and then we'll pair that with 3 open strings to make a 16th note grouping. So we'll go 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and then now that I've done my left hand I've concentrated on my left hand doing a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs, first with groups of 2 fingers and then with 4. Then I looked at my right hand by doing some picking, and a few things that I forgot to mention is whenever I pick, that I try to think of my picking as originating from my elbow. So I want to move this larger limb, and it gives me the option of really getting my hand across the strings very quickly, and it puts me in a great position to have good palm muting. So that just showing how I can get across the strings quickly and then include a little bit of palm muting. So the next exercise I do works on the coordination between both hands. So I'm still at 60 beats a minute. I'm gonna do 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So this exercise I just was doing, I believe that it comes from the Rock Discipline book by John Petrucci. Really great exercise for developing really good coordination between both hands. And as you start to speed it up, it gets to be a lot more difficult to keep your pick and your fingers well coordinated. Let's try it. I'm gonna try it at 90. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, pretty good. I usually try to get up to around 120 on that exercise. But 60 is the best place to start. The next exercise I'll do will work some on position shifts, and I'm gonna put this at 60, and I'm gonna start out slow. And so whenever I do a position shift, what I wanna do is I'm gonna start on string 6, and I'm gonna be in the first position. And whenever you play guitar, the position is defined by the fret that your index finger's over. Now, if you notice, whenever I'm in position 1, that finger 1 is over fret 1, finger 2 is over fret 2, ring fingers over 3, and little fingers over 4. So I'll go. Oops, you know what? I forgot to start on the first, on the open string. We'll do it again. So I'm gonna start on the open string, and I'm gonna play, and each time I'm gonna shift to the next position. So right now, my little finger's at the 4th fret. So if you'll notice, once I play this note, I make eye contact with the 5th fret. And that is where my next position shift is gonna be. So I stare right here, I relax my thumb, and I move my hand down to the next position. 2, 3, 4. So if you want to increase the difficulties of these, there's two strategies you can use. You can obviously increase the tempo, which won't give you, it'll shorten the length of time that you have to make your position shifts. Another strategy that you can use is that you can leave out some of the fingers in the middle. It makes it a lot harder. So I'll go. Etc. You can speed up the metronome even more to make it more complicated. That was at 86. I'm going to slow it back down to 60. Okay, so the next part of my practice session, I typically will work on finger independence exercises. This is one of the hardest exercises that I think that I know. And finger independence is whenever you have all your fingers down on the strings, holding down the string, and you need to move a string. And you'll do this, I mean, there's lots of... This isn't the jazzy sound of the guitar, but just as an example, I'm holding down part of a chord and then I'm doing a bass line at the same time. And so an exercise, a great exercise for doing these, building finger independence, comes from a classical guitar book that's called Pumping Nylon. And I have changed the exercise just a little bit, but I was really inspired by that, the guy that wrote that book. And so what you do to start is we start with all of our fingers down on the third string. I'm on frets 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I'm going to move my fingers in a pattern of strings every time, the same pattern. So I'm going to go 5th string, 2nd string, 6th string, 1st string. And if you notice, I'm trying to have a stillness in my hand. Now I'm going to do the middle finger. 5, 6, 5, 6. Third finger. 5, 6. That's a hard one. Then little finger. 5, 6. Now, after I've done the single fingers, I'll do groups of 2. So I'll go 5, 2. And I want to mention, this is not a song. We're not playing a song. So if some of your strings are muted or they don't ring out really clearly, it's totally acceptable. What we're really working on is your brain controlling your fingers and trying to build a coordination and finger independence. And then finally, if you want to make it really hard, you can split the fingers. So I go. Now, that gets me to the final part of my practice session. So the next part of my practice session, I call it music theory. And so whenever I work on the music theory, I'll take some particular songs that I'm working on, and then I'll work on the building blocks for those songs. So I know Dawn is working on some blues in A. And so blues in A, the first thing we would do is we would review the form, which is that's the overall structure of the blues. It's a 12-bar form. It's got 3 phrases. The first phrase is 4 measures of A7. The second phrase is 2 measures of D7 and 2 measures of A7. And then the last phrase is E7, D7, A7, E7. So what I want to do is I want to review the chords in the song. The chords are going to be A7, D7, E7, and then some variations. So I have my A7. This is one uses an open string. There's also this one. I always joke and say this one is Stevie Ray Vaughan's favorite, A7. Because I've noticed that in quite a few of his songs. D7. We have this D7. This is also another D7 option. E7. Stevie Ray Vaughan's favorite E7. And then this. We also might have a couple of bar chords. A7. I did a little hammer on there, but this is A7. D, this D7, and a variation on it, D9. E7, E9. We could do E7 down here. We could also do this E7. It's like a bar chord version of D7. Jimmy Page links that one. Then most of the solos in the blues style are going to come from the minor pentatonic scale or the blues scale. So we can review those. We can do some 1 octave minor pentatonic. I call these form 1. I start on my index finger, and that's why I call them form 1. So I'll find an A note on string 6 fret 5, and I'll do, that's the pentatonic scale right there. A, C, D, G, that's A. So then I find A on the next string. And so A on the next string is 12. From here, I'll find my next A. I'll do a whole different video on how to find all these different A notes. 7 down to 2. And then the last one, it's only 2 strings, but it's still pretty useful. I find myself playing that. I'll be playing blues in A, and I'll be able to, so it's really convenient. Then the next thing I'll do is a variation on that same scale pattern. I'll do the blues 1 octave, and I just add 1 note in. Notice I've added in this note. That's the flatted 5th. At 12. And I do these, I've memorized the finger pattern, and because I play in position, the finger pattern is always the same. One thing I want to point out is that if I'm actually soloing or playing with my band, I don't necessarily play in position. I might change the fingering. It's just for the convenience of memorizing the scale that I make sure I'm playing position. Then I'll also do 2-string patterns. I notice a lot of my favorite blues artists frequently will just solo on 2 strings. So I started to incorporate those. And I'll do the 2 lowest strings from the minor blues pattern. These are all starting on my index finger, but I also will play that same, I'll play the pattern on 2 strings starting on my 3rd finger. I call that one a form 3 because I always organize all my ideas for my scales. I'll find the note that I want to start on. In this instance, we're playing A blues. So I want the first note of my scale to be an A. So if I want it, I'll find an A. Here's one, string 6 fret 5, and I'll put my 3rd finger on there, and I've memorized that pattern. It's 3, 1, 3. Then I'll come down here, fret 12, string 5, string 4. That's on 7, on 2. And then this one. This one's great, even though it's only 2 strings. right. That's a lot of stuff to help get you started with practicing. One thing I wanted to mention, just to be clear, that I didn't really intend this to be an instructional video for somebody that is just coming to this channel or video for the first time. This is actually a supplement for somebody that comes in for lessons. So we've worked on a lot of this stuff in class, and they have handouts. So if you want more information or you want some handouts to work on this, you can contact me through my website. It's now-guitar.com. So it's NOW-GUITAR.com. All right. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.